The momentous 1896 U.S. Supreme Court decision Plessy v. Ferguson allowed separate but equal public schools for different races. The decision was not unanimous. Ahead of his time, Justice John Marshall Harlan, the only dissenter afterwards, stated, "Our Constitution is colorblind and neither knows nor tolerates classes among citizens." The decision assured racial segregation was legal for the next 58 years. In 1954, the U.S. Supreme Court's Brown v. Board of Education decision required racial desegregation of public schools throughout the country. This ruling had an enormous impact and was critical to moving our country towards full racial integration. Integrating its schools would prove to be difficult for Charleston. Although 1954 marked the beginning, it was not until 1969 that Charleston saw its last school desegregated. School desegregation led the way to eventually ending the Jim Crow segregation laws and practices embedded in our Mississippi Delta community. It is impossible to understand where we are today on the journey to full racial equality without exploring life before, during, and after school integration. The following interviews completed in the library of the Charleston High School mention Lincoln High School, the separate but equal school attended by Charleston's black students before and during integration. With the interviewees ranging in age from the youngest in his 50s to ones in their 70s, the recollections are unique to their own school-age vantage point. The oldest were teenagers when they first attended the partially integrated high school, and the youngest first attended integrated schooling while an elementary school pupil. What they experienced differed widely, particularly when considering their individual racial vantage points. It is important to understand that the school integration process in other communities also occurred over many years and paralleled the simultaneous integration of our society that continued much longer.
In Charleston, we had Charleston, but as a African American person, we had our private community and the Caucasian white people had their community. So what did we go around? You can use the railroad tracks as a divide. Blacks were always on the other side of the railroad track. And that was our community, not the west side or the east side. That was just our community. Brick building with a steeple at the top, real long. You had doors on that end, doors here, doors there. You had many entrances and arteries to go in and out. But at each door there was a teacher. Playground in the back, and the gym had for the basketball. We did not have football. And Charleston didn't play football back in the day. We only played basketball and baseball.
And we got there, our boys got the uniforms after the white kids finished the uniforms. Everything we got, a ball for the school, we got after they used it.
What was the experience of going to a segregated school?
The experience was awesome. When we integrated Charleston to Lincoln, when we went to court, NAACP brought a class action suit against Missouri's schools board. And when we went to court, we were testifying, and they asked us questions. I've testified about our library. We literally had a library with no books. And when we went to court, Mrs. Garwood, the superintendent of the schools in Charleston, she was the superintendent for Charleston and Lincoln. The judge asked her, why are there no books? And the condition of the books, the copyrights were way outdated. The books we got, the white kids had written on the pages, tore our pages, written all on the back, signed their names to it. But those were the books we had to study out of. You see? And so we figured out one day, we decided we were going to go downtown and apply for the 5 and 10 cent store to get a job. Well, we were all honor roll students and thought we were smart. But they would always tell us, oh, you don't qualify. And so we students got together and we said, why is it that none of us can ever get a job because they said we don't qualify? Then we started really getting smart, and we looked at the copyrights, and we stole some books out of the white school, and their copyrights were up to date. We said, bingo, that's the problem. Everything we read and learn is obsolete. And so that's when we brought the class action suit. So the judge said, we went to court for better books. We didn't know anything about integration. We were happy with Lincoln. Lincoln was a beautiful school. It was kindergarten to 12th grade. That's the only school we knew. Our parents went to that school, And so we were happy.
The schools were integrated when I was in high school, so that's a pretty big deal. My dad was on the school board, and he was one of the ones that got it pushed through. So that was a big deal. And I can remember the first people in my class were black. So that's a pretty big deal.
Could you tell me how it affected the community now that everyone was united?
Not everyone was united. One thing that was in Charleston's favor was that we had just a wonderful football team and a wonderful basketball team, and so they didn't care what color you were, like if you were good on those teams, And so we were fairly united in that, and but I do remember my dad was on the school board, and there was a Helen Curran. She was on the school board, and she would come out to the house, and my dad and she would talk about what was going to happen about integration and stuff. And we had to leave the room because she talked so rough. My dad wouldn't let us stay in the room. But she was a champion, and she did the right thing, and they got it through. But I can remember my first friend that was black in high school. I think I was about a junior, and she was a freshman. Annie Berner. We was the best friends, But I'd never gone to school with black people. No, but at first there were only just a handful. There weren't that many. It wasn't like that we all got together all at once. They just every year was a little bit more integrated. So.
And no one told us that this was going to be this devastating. And when they started pulling our black kids out and putting them over here, the word on the street was, they can come over here, but we're not going to teach them. And this is what really confused us and made us upset, because we were not welcome, but we were forced to go. But the judge made the decision. He said to Mrs. Garwood, why are they reading out of books that are this old? And she said, we could not afford 2 first-grade schools, so we gave the white kids the best school and the books, and the black kids got them afterward. The judge made a decision right then. He said, well, let's do it this way. Let's put them all under one roof and let them go to school together. I'm so pleased, because in the beginning, the students did not get along. They truly did not get along. It was fighting all the time, and threats all the time. So it brings joy to my heart to know that you all have found a way to work together, live together, play together, And we were shocked when we came back and saw this mixture, because when we left in 1963, there was absolutely no mixing, not even walking on the same side of the street.
I think we integrated when I was in the 1st grade. That's when the first black was, in one of my classes. By the time junior high school, is when full-blown integration came about. How did I feel? Mm-hmm. Same as everybody else,
Surprised, shocked?
Yeah, I was surprised. I remember, I said, there was a black child in my 1st grade class. My mother pulled up to drop me off at school, and one of my classmates ran out and told me. And it was not something that we expected. It just, it was done, and here it is. And there were no problems.
So do you remember how how did the black student act?
I'll never forget the look on her face. She was terrified.
She was scared.
She was terrified. She back with her back to the wall. And. I don't think she wanted to be there at all, and, she, matter of fact, I know she didn't from her appearances. Well, when I was in high school, there was a lot of racial discord, a lot. And, the fact that they'd cancel football games, afraid of breakout of violence, things like that. Put the school into lockdown, more or less. 5 years after I was gone, that seemed to me, of course, I wasn't here 5 years after I graduated, but from the outward appearances, it seemed to me that had mostly gone away.
I can remember back in the 70s when we had a sit-out, and what that consisted of, all of the African-American kids, parents, churches, they all got together and came up and said, we're not going back to school. until conditions get better. You got to remember now, we was just in a situation where we just got integrated. So it was still a transitional period going on. And so we as little kids, we used to march for a better school situation. And because of course we had Lincoln High School and elementary, and then we had the Charleston. So all of the African Americans went to Lincoln, and then all of the whites went to Charleston R1 school district, which Lincoln was part of Charleston R1 school district. But what it was a situation where when they integrated, it was still some stuff left over as far as us not coming together. And so when that occurred, it was a sit out, and they negotiated kind of the same way that Whitfield did with the sharecropper situation. Things got a little better, and that was a struggle that we had to go through to get. And back then we had a strong NAACP. We had strong churches that stuck together, and so because they had been taught that by the sharecropper strike, they understood what a struggle was and how to overcome those struggles. So they united, and here we are.
Imagine just for a moment what our world would look like today if our schools and community had not made the difficult transition from a segregated society towards an integrated one.